correspondent. Let's speak to David Kant, who's chief executive of Albion Overseas, that helps companies to conduct business in Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Dr. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society of Foreign Policy think tank. David Kant, first of all, this is, well, I'm sorry to say it, it's bad news for a lot of your customers, isn't it?
Hi, Jeremy. Yes, not ideal. I'll grant you that.
But deserved?
Yeah, probably. We've obviously, in our line of business, we've been in a state of restrictions since about 2014. Understandably, when Crimea took place and the shooting down of flight MH17. So we've dealt with the compliance issues that took place then. But this is a whole new level.
Because, well, I'm assuming that this will start to target individuals. There's a little bit of a lack of names yesterday, but you can feel it's heading that way, and people then won't be able to do any trade at all.
Well, the interesting thing is, I completely empathise with what is being done or trying to be done. But at the minute, from my little grassroots perspective, we're being hurt first. And by the way, I don't mean we as a company, we're just a company, but I mean my colleagues in Kiev and Moscow, for example, or indeed in Almaty in Kazakhstan, but our suppliers. So, for example, they've basically grounded Aeroflot flights into the UK, and of course, tit for tat, unsurprisingly, BA has been grounded also. And, I'm pretty confident that Vladimir Putin wasn't planning an economy flight into Heathrow, but I was. So, to me, I'm quite sure they're targeting the ownership of Aeroflot, whoever that may be. But what they're doing is they're grinding down any business. Now, forgive me for saying, and I don't mean to have a pop at anyone, but if you were to put into a room a journalist, a politician, and a business person, and then you applied the same, conversely, for example, a Russian journalist, a Russian politician, a Russian business person, I'm pretty confident that at the end of the day, once they'd all slugged it out, the people who would find compromise would be the business people. So it's business at the end of the day that's going to be stopped. And it's the one thing we've got left. And I'm not talking about high-tech technology and so on and so forth. I'm just talking about communication.
Yeah. Just stay with us. We've got Alan Mendoza, as I mentioned. Now, what do you think of that, Alan, that we are hurting our own people here?
Well, unfortunately, there's going to have to be a bit of pain because we are dependent on Russian trade in certain areas. I mean, not as much, obviously, the continent, and we've got clearly a different route out. But the reality is that when you sup with the devil, you have to accept that at times you may have to withdraw from supping with the devil. We've known he's the devil for some time. And while I, of course, sympathise that, trade is trade, business is business, at the same time, when someone does something so outrageous as he has done, then there has to be a price worth paying. I mean, others could argue that if you like every conflict, we should never go to either, sort of dispute with anyone because we would be harming our own trade interests. Sometimes there are different interests that are more important than trade.
And I suppose, David, is it fair to say you could have seen this coming with the invasion of Crimea in 2014 and maybe got out of this area?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with your other speaker at all. And, sometimes I look in the mirror and I wish, why didn't I learn Spanish?
Well, Alan, there is an issue about whether any of this will work. That's the thing. Because once you're dealing with nationalism, patriotism, you hit them in the pocket and it doesn't hurt at all.
Well, you've got to hit them in the pocket hard. We haven't hit them hard enough just yet. Sanctions are obviously a tool that take a bit of time to work as well. You can't just expect results overnight. But ideally, in such a state, we know where he is going with his ambitions. We know what his plans are. To stop him, surely you have to throw everything at him at once in the hope that you have enough traction there to stop him. Otherwise, what you end up doing is you're tightening the vice. He will then proceed with his short-term objectives. You may well get what you want in the medium term, but a lot of damage is done in between. So what we need to do is go faster and harder now.
We mentioned the business sanctions and all that, and doubtless there are more names coming of people who are going to be targeted. The other thing, often overlooked, is sport. David. Now, they've just lost the Champions League final, which St. Petersburg was going to host. It's going to Paris. We know that the sport boycotts really hurt South Africa. We only really found out how much after apartheid ended. Is that something we need to do more of?
Well, I'm quite surprised that UEFA took more than 5 minutes making that decision. To be honest, that would have been an easy one. For example, by comparison to closing down the incoming and outbound flights from Aeroflot, there are some decisions that seem to me to be very easy. But I suppose the government here in the UK is doing what they feel they have jurisdiction over, and that doesn't necessarily relate to Ofcom or UEFA. So Ofcom and UEFA are being asked to deal with that themselves, which is understandable. But those ones seem to me to be relatively simple decisions.
Thank you very much indeed, David Kant of Albion Overseas and Dr. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society, talking about sanctions, all kinds of different levels of sanction coming in, whether it will do anything at all. We'll wait to see.